Yo, it's Austin, and before we get started, I want to talk about and thank today's sponsor, ExpressVPN. The times are changing. Easily accessible public Wi-Fi is becoming more readily available, hackers are ready to pounce, and worst of all, I'm running out of TV shows to watch. And that's why you might need ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN is a VPN provider that works to encrypt your data, mask your IP, and protect it from outsiders. This is pretty useful in general, but doubly so when you're surfing the net on someone else's connection, especially an open one. Beyond practical usage though, ExpressVPN is also a really nifty way to get around content region locking for streaming services you already have access to. Maybe certain shows keep hopping off of US Netflix. Maybe I'd still like to watch them. I really wish that I knew how to make that work. They also don't store your data on any of their servers, so you don't gotta worry about anyone finding your VOR collection, Bennett. Not today. So if you're looking for a good way to protect your personal data and want 3 months free, click the link down in the description below. That's expressvpn.com/eruption to get started today. Thanks to ExpressVPN for the sponsor today, and now let's get started on the video games. Licensed video games have existed nearly as long as video games themselves. From the Trons and Indiana Jones and the arcades and Ataris all the way to Duck Dynasty 2 times, the video game industry always seems interested in making a quick buck. However, for a while there, it seemed like licensed games were on the out. On the 5th and 6th generations of consoles, these things were like a dime a dozen. Come on over to my place and we can play Monster Garage on the PlayStation 2, or Crazy Frog Racer 2. But sometime after Rocksteady made the best superhero game and Sega completely failed at it, the well kinda dried up. The licensed game market shifted to a predominantly mobile game one where IP holders can just pay a dude $35 to make a Game of War clone and call it a day. Although recently it seems like everyone's just making a Hearthstone clone. Who asked for the Lord of the Rings one? How is this real? But now that the digital market's getting bigger, a lot of developers are making more niche titles with licenses, and we have been getting some stuff. In the last years, I've talked about some of these, like the Jumanji, Left 4 Dead, Fortnite looking thing, or the plethora of newer kart racers dominating every license you can imagine. Damn you, Ryan. But it's not all bad. We've also got legitimate Game of the Year contenders like Insomniac's Spider-Man, surprise cult hits like Doraemon's Story of Seasons, and the better than they have any right to be South Park duology. So yo, it's Austin, and today we're gonna be talking about the modern licensed game. Now, over the last couple years, we've been seeing them make a comeback, be it good or bad, but it's cool to at least see them out there. So I want to start today by talking about a franchise that's actually had relatively decent luck with video games. Y'all ever heard of those Power Rangers? The American version of Power Rangers is real weird. The fact that to this day, Saban continues to license bits of Toei's Super Sentai TV series and transform it is crazy.
This is just too weird for me.
They could easily just dub the thing, but nah, they're still doing overarching plots that combine multiple series over the course of 20 years that might otherwise be unrelated for the sake of maybe bringing back Jason David Frank as Dr. Tommy Oliver. Again. Power Ranger video games are an anomaly to me. Despite having a clear-cut source material from Japan, just about every one of these games was developed for an English-speaking audience. A lot of them were even made by Japanese developers and never released over there, like Power Ranger Zeo Battle Racers. Anyone remember this? In 2016, Boom Comics launched a brand new series called simply Mighty Morphin Power Rangers that took the canon from all of the Western adaptations and casually uses space-time continuum displacement to mesh all the shows together. Except it's darker and has less of this.
Your invasion ends here, Draven. Look out! I'm gonna take this Nylock alone. My foot! My pants.
Bizarrely, in 2019, this adaptation got its own fighting game. That makes Power Rangers Battle for the Grid a video game adaptation of a comic book adaptation of a Western television adaptation of like 20 Japanese television shows. Jesus. Weirdly though, when this thing launched initially, it was lacking a story mode. Sound familiar? In fact, the day one version of this was missing a lot that would get added to the game over the next 2 months. Characters, stages, freaking voice acting, like it's early access, but not being marketed as that. However, despite that, Power Rangers Battle for the Grid is way better than it has any right to be. It takes a lot from Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which is a very good fighting game to base your stuff around and did exactly what it set out to do. It's not overly complicated to learn. Look, you can even easily pull off infinites. Okay, so maybe it's a tad broken, but provided you play with the right people, Battle for the Grid is a pretty fun, fast-paced, and chaotic fighter. Over time, it's had 2 season passes, a full-on 2.0 update with a ton of additions and changes, and it continues to have support, which is more than you can say for a lot of games. But if you're a hardcore Power Rangers fan, yeah, Rangers, not Super Sentai, it's probably your fave. Maybe not the 1.0 though. I like seeing more AA, B, or indie-focused licensed games. Something like Power Rangers existing in the same space as the huge budgeted Disney-fueled Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is really cool and proves that not everything needs to push massive sales numbers to be successful. In fact, with exceptions like the upcoming Avengers game, your Spider-Man, and the seemingly infinite amount of anime arena fighters, most licensed games tend to come out of nowhere. There's no one hopping on a stage and being like, "Coming soon, the Avengers." It's more like,
"Oh, hi gamers."
I feel like the Terminator franchise is cursed. It's just like Alien. You make 2 good, heck, great movies, and then you just continuously fail for the rest of time. Now, while Alien has had its fair share of video games, most bad, some fantastic, Terminator games have lingered in the it's okay to the atrocity side of the scale. Anyone wanna come over, hang out, play some Terminator 2 Judgment Day Chess Wars? Anyone? Terminator Dark Fate kinda just came out, didn't it? The long-awaited retconning reboot failed to impress or perform, and I guess Terminator Resistance was planned to launch alongside it, and it kinda did. It came out all good in Australia and Europe and the PC everywhere, but on consoles in the States it had to be pushed back to January, which is absurd. This game's got a very positive on Steam, so I'm expecting something good.
And I found something for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is this Sonic Adventure 2?
You're not even good enough to be I'll make you eat those words.
You know, when I saw that Teon, the developers of 2014's Rambo the video game, were making another game, I was genuinely surprised. The thing was notoriously bad and universally panned, so I'm confused as to how they got their hands on the Terminator license. Then I remember the last 20 years and, oh, okay, it makes more sense. Have you ever played Fallout? Because that's basically what Terminator Resistance is. Right up to the lockpicking minigame too. Dang, it's like just as good as Fallout 4. So Resistance is an interesting beast. It's not a bad video game. It's deceptive because you'll be looking at it and playing it in certain spots and think to yourself, is this one of them AAA video games to be greeted by B-game jank a second later? Sometimes sleuthing around feels amazing. Being a Resistance soldier in the Skynet ravaged world is atmospherically on point. But then you're trying to do some stealth missions and well, it's certainly not Alien Isolation. Oh, is that the Terminator song? That's cool. Again, well, at least it's not as startling as The Outer Worlds.
What are you doing here, boy? I know a kid that'd take care of you. Come on.
Where did I put that dog? Terminator Resistance, surprisingly, has a decent amount of stuff going on, but I can't shake how bad some of the gameplay feels. Gunplay isn't great, especially because everything you fight has to be killed in a very specific manner. It's like Borderlands with weak points, except there's hardly any gun variety. I know these T-800s are extreme sponges, and they're supposed to be ridiculously powerful, but trying to play this like a cover shooter with the stock sound effects sounding lasers is it's not great. Although it's fun to knock them down with a shotgun. I think the best thing Resistance has going for it is the writing. It's pretty solid, and the dialogue choice system here actually matters in the end. They make sure you know that right away. But I would only recommend this to the hardest of hardcore Terminator fans. It's like a solid 6 out of 10.
We need to help him! He's dead.
That is, unless you're a fan of the hacking minigame. It's just Frogger. Frogger, my sweet Cajun baby boy. Beyond. Speaking of old stuff, let's talk about Jurassic Park. Or World now, I guess. If I were to say amusement park simulation games are some of my favorites, would they give away my age? As someone who grew up on gems like Sim Theme Park, Roller Coaster Tycoon, and Zoo Tycoon, the few times I got to play Jurassic Park Operation Genesis were a complete joy. Look, I know that Jurassic Park as a whole is like, hey, maybe if we have the power to do something, we shouldn't necessarily do it, but that sure won't stop me from sinking literally hundreds of hours into micromanaging my dino park. So when Jurassic World Evolution was announced with Frontier Developments on the project, project, I was cautious. They have quite the illustrious belt, what with Roller Coaster Tycoon and The Glorious Dog's Life, but they also did that reboot of Zoo Tycoon. And yeah, first-person bear squirting is fun and all, but I'm on that sim kick, you feel? Thankfully, Evolution seems to kinda slide into a niche of a niche directly in between those two extremes to give us a pretty dang fun theme park simulation, let alone licensed game, even if it's a little glitchy sometimes. There's a pretty cool campaign mode here where you're put in charge of several islands where you have to fulfill contracts in order to unlock stuff. There's a big emphasis on genetically modifying the dinosaurs in order to increase their lifespans, profitability, and intrigue at the park, so you'll spend a lot of time looking at numbers and theory crafting. The most exciting part of video games, I know, but look guys, this boss isn't gonna DPS itself. Evolution is quite the looker too. Growing up with these games, they were always low quality sprites or terrible 3D models, so it's pretty impressive to be able to zoom in from a massive wide angle shot of your map all the way down to a detailed dinosaur looking like a stupid idiot. Or watching your guests phase through metal doors. Turns out the dinosaur facility is actually a front for human experimentation. Nice. Balancing the scientific, entertainment, and security aspects of your park can be difficult, especially if you're trying to keep people in the park while someone else is telling you to let a dinosaur loose. But that's all in a day's work for a I don't know, what am I in this game? Evil corporate researcher / sim park manager playing with the concept of life? At least I get to look at these pictures of Jeffrey. When you aren't tampering with life though, you're building gift shops and restaurants for your guests, managing the power situation, or dealing with emergencies. You can just click to make the guys do it, or you can hop into the driver's seat and tranquilize that dinosaur yourself. Then watch them ragdoll into the sky. It's very, very good. The only real negatives I can think about with Evolution are the prevalence of downloadable content and the smaller sizes of your islands, making things feel slightly limited. No, you won't be able to make that massive sprawling city you do in SimCity, but you will get to basically play Tetris with your dinosaurs to make it work. I know the developer Frontier has followed this up with their now extremely popular Planet Zoo, but I would like a sequel to this. Real animals are cool and all, but there's literally nothing cooler than combining dinosaurs in theme parks. Except maybe dinosaur theme parks in space! Let's move on to another scaly beast, the dragon. While they aren't dinosaurs, dragons are also pretty dope. Dinos gotta deal with stubby little T-Rex arms, while dragons are like, hey, I can fly, breathe fire, and I can speak English.
You stabbed me! It's stuck in me, Zero! Get it out!
A little unbalanced in comparison, which is why Japan patched in Godzilla to keep it even. But this isn't about Godzilla and that not very good game they released in 2014. This is about how to train your dragon. DreamWorks Dragons. Gotta make sure to say DreamWorks beforehand, because I guess you can't just say dragon. I tried to look it up to see if anyone held the rights to the word dragon, and instead Google was like, are dragons in Bibles? Dungeons and Dragons in Bibles. Everyone's favorite version. How to Train Your Dragon was one of those book-based DreamWorks films to break the mold and be more than just a one-off, becoming a huge franchise that sold all kinds of toys. Then it broke away from that to become a TV show that lasted for well over 100 episodes. The Power of Children. This entire franchise is no stranger to video games, but I was surprised to see a full console game in 2019. And even more surprised to find out that it's a 2D Zelda clone. What? DreamWorks Dragons: Dawn of the New Riders came out sometime early last year, and it's pretty alright. Now, if I know anything about kids, it's that they love blood and guts. You can try to hand them a copy of Final Fantasy IX and they'll be like, no! If I were a kid who was really into How to Train Your Dragon, I'd be extremely lucky to play something like this. A full dang Zelda clone adventure with decent combat, colorful level design, and the ability to control a dragon sounds pretty good. It goes full Zelda with the heart collection, shield blocking mechanics, puzzles, and even door opening jingles. Except this one's kind of lame. You don't control Hiccup and Toothless in this, but instead a new duo, Scribbler and Patch. In between levels, you get to fly around Skyward Sword style on your dragon, which I did not expect. Sure, there's not much to do out here, but glitch into boats and fly around, but if you view your map, the camera does this really neat zoom, and what is this polish? Except not in the boss fights, those needed a bit more time to bake. This was brought to us by Climax Studios, who we've talked about a bunch of times on this channel, and it seems like they're a bit hit and miss considering Shattered Memories and Rocket Knight, but they did pretty okay on this one. Unfortunately though, DreamWorks Dragons is forgettable, at least for an old man like me. But if I was perhaps, say, 6 years old and the target demographic, I don't think there's much more I could ask for, except maybe a platinum trophy. Boo. Considering small children like to give their parents ultimatums like DreamWorks Dragons or Doom Eternal, you could do worse. Like our next contender, Zombieland Double Tap Road Trip. Holy f***. Hey, what up Game Mill? Thanks for coming. Again. Our favorite publisher around these parts is back at it again with a brand new licensed game for us to try. Teaming up this time with High Voltage Software, who have a very, very mixed gameography, they're here to bring us the video game adaptation of the hot sequel to Zombieland Double Tap, which somehow, despite me not even knowing this movie existed until seeing the game on the shelf, outgrossed the original. What? Double Tap is what else but a twin-stick shooter. One with special moves and upgrades, one with a Borderlands-esque presentation, but most importantly, one with definitely all the actors.
Rule 42, porta potties are a hard pass.
I've never been to DC. Sounds fun.
Oh, Nevada. Oh, I love you.
You don't need to prove anything to me.
I'm not really sure why we needed a Zombieland video game, let alone one that uses a colon and dash in the same listing, but here we are. You can play either horde mode or campaign, where you go across the country doing missions like turning on all the rides at a theme park, helping grandma find her way home, or finding a place to poop. Twin stick shooters can be fun, but Helldivers, this is not. It's not even Contra Rogue Core, at least that game had interesting things going on. Sure, we've talked about a lot of good stuff in this video, but it's comforting to know that the bargain bin, why does this exist type of licensed game is still around, even if it hurts. Yo, the Zombie Ain't My Neighbor sequel, where that at? Where that be? Regardless of quality though, it's sure nice to see the sheer variety of licensed games coming back into the limelight. If you told me 10 years ago I'd be seeing indie studios like Bonus XP bringing us Stranger Things 3 the game, or more importantly, freaking The Dark Crystal Tactics, I'd have laughed. How things like this come to fruition, I'll never know, but I appreciate it. While it's still more common to see the ball being dropped, such as the case with the Planet of the Apes Last Frontier or Blair Witch, one of the more interesting cases of the last decade has to be Friday the 13th, the game. Asymmetrical multiplayer. It's not every day someone makes a decent game with this. While it's been around for a while, the first time that asymmetry really stood out to me was when I was playing Spies vs. Mercenaries on Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow. The different POVs made for exciting matches that clearly carried the series online for years. So Friday the 13th. Let's take the movies about a murderer with a dead mom and turn it into a 7-on-1 survival horror experience. Sounds great, right? And it is. For the right price. It's got that jank, you know? While it kind of loses the horror vibe if you're playing with friends, there's something fun about the simplicity of trying to stay alive. Or doing the slashing. And teleporting, I guess. Strangely, Friday came out around the same time as Dead by Daylight, and they have some common threads, although you definitely get more defensive options in that one. The spawn RNG in Friday the 13th, the game, will have you getting lucky or just like, oh hey, I'm stuck in a barn with Jason, right away. Sick. While this game was a Kickstarter success story and came out without too much of a problem, things quickly went awry whenever the question of downloadable content came into play. While they were trying to add more Jasons and counselors for people to play as, some of the original creators were like, nah dog, and sued the heck out of them and won. Like really fast. Fair, I guess, but this effectively killed the slew of content that they wanted to add. As it stands, the game is fine and fun at the right price, but unfortunately, it seems like they cut the power early. However, the original devs at Illphonic are now working on Predator Hunting Grounds, another asymmetrical licensed video game, so we can just hope this one works out a little better for them. Anything to let me jump scare my friends. Alrighty, we're gonna be talking about one more video game today, and I want it to be something fun. No, we're not gonna be talking about that new Star Wars thing, not today, maybe another time, but something that was a little more surprising to see in a video game form. Now, based off of the 2017 surreal art existentialist piece starring Tom Cruise, I give you The Mummy. You ever accidentally render out a video project with an audio track muted? Because that was good stuff. Honestly, I'm just gonna consider this the entire film. I didn't see it. Who would do that? But for some inexplicable reason, in late 2017, this cruise fest would get itself a tie-in adaptation and was not only a complete surprise, but an actual fun Metroidvania-style game. Probably because it was made by WayForward. WayForward is one of those companies that's capable of turning what seems to be a doomed concept into a great one. They like to do a mix-up of original games and licensed titles like your Shantaes and, more recently, River City Girls. But I don't think anyone expected them to make this. Leaning a bit harder into the Metroid side of the genre, Mummy Demastered gives you tons of guns and gadgets to play with. You start off with your basic baby pistol, and before you know it, you're clinging onto the ceiling, shooting harpoons, and phase dashing into the sky. Sure, yeah, it's not a very long game, clocking in at around 5 or 6 hours, but some of the bosses are pretty tough and you're probably gonna die. Whoop! Surprise Dark Souls, baby! If you die, you have to fight the mummified version of your dead body with another generic super soldier man, which also means you respawn with jack all in your inventory. Yikes. This can be no problem or exceptionally difficult depending on where you are in the game. Sometimes you might just have a pile of your own corpses to fight. You're hunting down Princess Amenette, who takes you through this Metroid-looking cave, underground palace pyramid thing, and you fight massive bosses, make contact with Russell Crowe, and you know how these things work. Just with a Mummy 2017 skin slapped right on top of it. Except that movie probably doesn't have this bumpin' EDM chiptune hybrid original soundtrack that'll make the smallest of booties pop. That was hella lit. Dog. Fam dog. The Mummy Demastered was a total surprise, and I'm in for more of this kind of stuff. While not every licensed indie game combo comes out on top, this one sure knocked it out of the park. Y'all need to not worry about those complex 3D models or voice acting. Just make a fun game in your means and you'll have my attention. Or just let me make dinosaurs fight. Yo, Jurassic World Evolution, but instead of dinosaurs, it's different versions of Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise Evolution. Well, that's it for today. Now, the definition of modern licensed games keeps changing due to modern being a day further every day. Eventually, I'll probably have to rename this old licensed games, which will be very sad, but in order to combat stuff like that, I've been thinking we try something new. Maybe, and I've been thinking about this for a while, I should start a new show talking specifically about licensed games, and I think I'm gonna go forward with it. I just need a little help from you guys. I'm having trouble deciding on a name and some of the games I should cover. I do have a whole bunch. I just want to see what you guys are interested in that I haven't already covered. I will not do Enter the Matrix again. I know you guys love the licensed games. The analytics tell me that YouTube is like, this is what they want. So drop your suggestions in the comments down below, and now I'm going to go because I must play Animal Crossing. Bye. Thank you so much for watching. Special Patreon shout out to Brandon Howe, Chris Shelton, Christopher Olivia, Cliff Bro, Donald Dowdy, David Molnar, Eli Shane Staufenecker, Jay Roos, Jane Jones, Jacoby Fitzpatrick, Josh Garbage Lord, Kieran Arter, Legend Gary, Nitron Plasma Phoenix, Sodden Gritter, and Vlad Lust. Thank you very much for your generous support. What's that you say? 3 in a month? Oh my god. I was gonna have one a little sooner. I'm trying my best, guys. I'm trying my best. Things are kind of weird right now with the state of YouTube and the world as a whole, but I'm just gonna keep on making content for you guys. If you feel like pitching in a buck, if you can afford it, of course. My Patreon's always available, and I'm just gonna keep doing me. You guys keep doing you, and stay safe out there. See you guys next week.